Hello, my dears. Daniela here, and welcome to another episode of the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. Now, in the interview that I'm going to play for you today, it's with a good friend of mine, Mark Bailey. Now, Mark and I met at a business conference a few months ago, and he was talking about the difference between high performance and peak performance. And it was really intriguing to me because I had never really thought about this concept before, but if you just take a minute and reflect on your life, there's different times that you are like, if you're just pushing yourself and then you burn out, so you're going, and then burning out. That is, the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys of entrepreneurship. And so Mark, and through his approach, had a way to look at life and look at, changing from being in those constant peaks and valleys into actually, going up and maintaining at a steady level that achievement, that focus in your business, that focus in, your goals and whatever it is that you're wanting to achieve. So I know that especially as solo estheticians, it can be really challenging when you're a one-woman show. So this episode is especially for you to really learn about how you can hold yourself to the highest standard, how you can maintain your highest level of performance. So I hope you like this episode. If you want to keep the conversation going, as always, head over to the Spa Marketing Made Easy Facebook group. We've got, the videos of our episodes in there. I love the conversations that we have. You guys give me great ideas of episodes and people you want me to interview on there. And I love getting to know all of you better. So if you're not in the group already, I encourage you to do that. So, all right, without further ado, let's go ahead and play that interview. All right, I have Mark Bailey here. Mark, so excited to have you on the show. You are a high performance expert, and I'm going to let you explain a little bit about what that means. Tell us about your business, who you are, what you do, and how you kind of got into this high performance arena.
Yeah, awesome, Daniela. Thank you so much for having me here today, and I'm really excited to be sharing with your viewers and your audience. And so, I never decided that I wanted to be a high performance expert, and it's something that has just transitioned over the years because I love to do things with excellence, and being high performance is synonymous with excellence. And so how I got into it was many, many years of just being in the corporate environment, and people continually asking me, well, how do you do these things? How are you so, efficient and effective at what you're doing? And I never really thought about it because, when you do something that's what you do kind of naturally and progressively learning, you just get better at it. And so it was pretty amazing just to see how it came to this. So it really stumbled into the coaching because I was coaching in the corporate environment, started my own coaching business, and learned so many things over the years about high performance. And I decided, this is something I really want to make my life out of, is helping not only high performing, but also high potential in people, and create that high performance and high potential is what I love.
So do you feel, you said that you love doing things with excellence.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that was something you were born with, or is that something your parents kind of taught you, or it's just like this internal thing? Because I always wonder that, like, how do you teach drive? Because in spas, when I was working as a spa director, it was, I was responsible for hiring. And one of my mentors said, hire the smile, train the skill. You can't train people to be nice. You can't train people to be honest, but you can train them the skill. So do you think excellence is something like that? Or do you think people can learn excellence?
Oh, 100% they can learn it. Great question. Yeah, there's the saying is the hire for character, train for skill, kind of like what you said. Because skill is a tactic. Mm-hmm. Our knowledge, our skills, and our abilities are things that we learn over time. They come from our past experiences. It comes from role modeling after other people. It comes from reading. It comes from taking courses, from coaching, whatever it may be that's going to change and affect our perspective. And so excellence, what I love about excellence is just really that entire word, because excellence is different for everyone. So it's something that can actually be learned.
So how do you define excellence?
So excellence is doing more than you're expected to do, not only because of other people, maybe their expectations, but for your own. So it's the constantly improving, because it's choosing the challenge over comfort. And I think that high performing individuals and those with high potential are continuously trying to tap into what that is, because they know there's always another level.
Choosing the challenge over comfort. I love that. That's, I think so our audience, we have a lot of solo estheticians, small business owners, but we also have a lot of medical spas, a lot of physicians that are listening. And there's a whole range of people wanting to achieve different things with different definitions. I'm assuming different definitions of excellence, but I think that really sums it up right there, is choosing the challenge over comfort. I love that, because it pushes people. The biggest changes happen when you step outside of your comfort zone. And, it's comfortable and safe in your bubble, but I don't believe you're ever going to reach your full potential unless you get a little uncomfortable at times.
Oh, totally. And there's also neuroscience to prove that, because your brain actually craves predictability. So the reason why we can do everything that we like to do and stay in our comfort zone is because our mind and our brains are like, yeah, this feels good because it's safe. We already know it. And the reason why it allows us to continue to do what we've always done is to be honest, is that it hasn't killed us yet. So we're obviously doing something right? So it's like, give us more of that, but it keeps us in that comfort zone. And so when you start to challenge yourself, you're challenging yourself outside of that comfort zone. So when I talked about excellence is going outside of your comfort zone a little bit at a time. Because if you stay outside your comfort zone for too long and you haven't built like the knowledge, skills, and abilities to sustain that, then you're gonna experience overwhelm, and you're gonna retreat very quickly back to your comfort zone, and you might even give up because you think it's too hard. So as we spend a little bit more time outside of the comfort zone, then we are learning to build. So again, like the tactical side or the skill side of your individual spa owners, taking that on, moving, and they probably all work for somebody at some point. Until their comfort zone they've reached the top of their comfort zone, they were ready for the next challenge. Now that challenge scared them a little bit, but they did it anyway. But they didn't just open up this massive spa. They probably started very small and grew into that.
So a couple of months ago, I heard you speaking at a business conference, and you were talking about high performance versus peak performance. Can you explain a little bit about what you mean by that? Because that was actually, that conversation just struck such a chord with me. And I was just like, it was like one of those, like Oprah always talks about the aha moments. I was like, oh my God. So share with our listeners, like, what that difference is.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to make the analogy with sports. So peak performance can generally be associated with sports. So let's just say football, since we've got the playoffs that are going on right now. And so these guys, they go out in the field, they're practicing. They're practicing their strength conditioning. They're doing everything they need to do so that they're ready to play on Sunday. Then once they played on Sunday, they do everything they can. They leave everything out there. They're bruised, they're battered, they're emotionally, physically fatigued. And then it's just like, and now they go back down again. And now it's time to kind of rest. And they're always working towards a peak performance, on that Sunday. People also work for peak performances in things like, I'm just going to use an example of weight loss. So anybody that's ever tried to lose weight, actual weight loss is the peak performance. You've lost your 20, 30, 50 pounds, whatever your goal is. And then what usually happens after you reach that goal?
Gain your weight back.
You gain your weight back because you start to rest on your laurels and your successes, and you go, man, I worked so hard to get here. I'm emotionally drained. I'm physically drained. And I did everything I could just to make this thing happen. I'm just going to take a little time off. And then what happens? 2-3 months go by, the weight starts creeping back up. 6 months later, you're like, I have no idea how I was able to gain all that weight back. So it's the peak performance. So when you look at high performance, High performance is reaching heightened and sustained levels of what you believe makes you successful. So I'll have that analogy like an airplane. So when an airplane takes off, you've got a runway, and they use the most amount of fuel, and the challenges will mostly arrive in that momentum as they are trying to break gravity, get off into the air. They use all the fuel, all the energy. It's also the most dangerous time because there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Well, that analogy is the same thing with as we are trying to take off from our mediocre comfort zone that we're down there. There's a lot that goes into it. So we got to make sure that we're able to sustain that until we get to cruising altitude. Mm-hmm. And that cruising altitude means that once you've gotten there, you're maintaining and sustaining that flow and that rhythm and that airspeed for long periods of time, but you're hardly burning any fuel because you've got all that momentum. So if you reach heightened and sustained levels of your performance in your business or in your life, then you don't have to worry about coming back down again. And I love the analogy because you're going to hit turbulence while you're there.
Exactly. And I think we see that as business owners so often is the peak performance. It's like there's so many more peak performers than there are high performers because you put so much energy. There's so many things to do. You're constantly putting out fires, constantly solving problems. So you can get really focused on, I need to bring in this many new clients, or I need to get clear on my social media plan, or I need to make X amount of money. And you get really focused on one thing, and then you hit that goal and you're completely exhausted that you need a vacation or you need some time off or you get burnt out. And so you have this like up and down and up and down. So
you said something real quick there, Daniel. You said something that was really interesting. You said the problems that come up that the individual owners, will face. And that's what peak performers do. They look for the problem and then they solve for it instead of looking for the cause of it and creating a process for it. That's what high performers do. Is you look at something, they're not interested in treating the symptom, they're interested in curing the cause. So if that problem is consistently coming up, then it's like it's going to come up again. I guarantee it. So if it comes up more than 3 times, you're just not paying attention to it and creating some sort of a process or a system. But the peak performer is going to say, that's too difficult. That's somebody else's job. I don't want to work with it. It's going to continue showing up and you're going to exasperate yourself emotionally and physically trying to solve that when all you need to do is, okay, I'm going to go back to the plane analogy. If you hit turbulence, they have to ask permission from the air traffic controllers in order to go to a higher level or a lower level. So if the air is cleaner, below and less turbulent, they will wait for permission, which means they are consciously asking for a slowdown or a lowering of their plane or their business. So you can have smoother weather. So maybe if you pushed yourself so high, you're on the peak, but you can't hold it, then consciously look at your business and your life and let's go ahead and drop down a level. One that you can sustain until you have clearer weather and you found the source of this turbulence or these processes, so you can go back up higher again. Does that make sense?
It does. So my question that's kind of going in the back of my mind is like, what role does fear play in all of this? Because fear is something that we all have. And I know before the show, we were just talking about your Jedis back there. But fear is something that just as human beings, I think it's part of our nature, and it's there, especially being a business owner, it can be scary. Like, what if I don't have enough clients? What if I don't make enough money? What if I have to close there's all these what ifs that can cause people to make fear-based decisions. Mm-hmm. But I imagine as a high performer, do you have a process to help with your fear, or how do you go about that? Because
great question. So fear is natural. It's completely normal. So it's like playing tennis, right? We shouldn't be shocked when the other person hits the ball back over the net. That's what fear is going to happen, especially when you're challenging yourself, to do more. Mm-hmm. So the difference and what can help is the mentality I look at is usually fear-based. They're usually brain-based fears. So again, it's the brain creating a fear that's not real because it wants you to go back to your comfort zone. It's being challenged to do something different. Mm-hmm. So where the fear will usually come from is that we are basing our decisions off of past circumstances. And so that's a fear-based is usually circumstantial thinking. So it's high performers they stop thinking from the circumstances and they start to think from possibility and creativity. Instead of what if this goes wrong, it's what will it take to make this successful. You see the shift?
Yeah. And I think that's a really important shift. I feel like we grow up like living from circumstance instead of from possibility. Maybe when you're a kid, everything's possible. But as you grow up, there's something that kind of trains us like, oh, well, this is realistic or this is whatever. And so high performers are just shifting their mind and thinking from a different place where almost to that kid-like state, like what's possible? Curiosity.
And that's you. Yeah. What you just said there, Danielle, is really big because think about how bold you were as a kid. I mean, how many times we ride that bike and eat it on that bike, and, get up and do it all over again. Everything that we've ever done in life, we've had to learn. So why do we stop that when we're older? So as we're adults, it's almost like our boldness and our excellence and our high performance has been conditioned out of us because of all of our experiences.
I noticed in myself when I had my daughter, there was a big shift in me in just how I approached life in general. And it was just from being surrounded with her and her curiosity and her, always wanting, she will like fall backwards off a couch and do it 20 times because it's fun, so it's like,
because it's fun, right?
Yeah, it's fun. Oh, what's going to happen? So I think being around, this kind of brings me to another point is like that Jim Rohn quote that is, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think that you can listen to this podcast, you can read books, but if the people that you're spending time with are not high performers, or at least striving to be high performers, it's going to be really hard for you to shift your mindset. And there's so many ways, like I just mentioned, my daughter is a huge coach in life for me to shift my thinking into what is possible. But there's so many ways that, the estheticians and the physicians and everyone who's listening to this episode, if they're wanting to go deeper into this work, it's really about finding a core community of like-minded people, right? People that are thinking in the same way and striving to get into that high performance level. But what advice do you have? I mean, that's just what I think. What advice do you have for people who want to really work to change their thinking?
Mm-hmm. So great quote by Jim Rohn. I love him. And my other favorite Jim Rohn quote is, to add to that, is that there is the greatest gift that you can give someone else is the gift of your own personal development.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I love quotes, but rising tides lift all boats.
I say that in my business like at the end of every competition, collaboration, not competition, a rising tide floats all boats. I love it. Yeah.
Because you lift it. So if you're working on yourself to become a high performer and you're hanging out with those other people, you are going to raise them up. Mm-hmm. If you don't raise them up, then you boot them out. Because you can't have somebody holding you back, like that. I'm not saying that you get rid of them forever. It's just like you're dead to me, but you have a different relationship with that person because that connection that you're around there. So to help, folks that are listening to do things differently. So what high performers also do differently is there's a relationship. There's like kind of an inverse relationship between action and happiness. And it works like the chicken and the egg. People are like, well, which came first? Well, the chicken had to come first. They're the one that laid the egg. And the other people are, well, how the heck did the chicken get there without the egg? So you're going back and forth, right? Action, happiness are the same thing. Mm-hmm. So not every action you take is going to bring you happiness, but you can't ultimately have the happiness without taking the action.
Right.
Action precedes the happiness, and also action precedes clarity. So the more action you take, the more clarity you get. And when you talked about the fear, most people look at fear like it's this massive football field filled with like trenches and barbed wire fences and machine gun turrets and flamethrowers. And at the very end, you got to fight Godzilla, right? And you're like, how the hell am I going to get through all this? But really what it is, it's like a really thin veil that you can literally wisp aside with your finger as soon as you take action, because you are no longer thinking about it, you're actually doing it. And what do we usually say once we get done doing something that we were freaked out about? What do we usually say?
It was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
A lot easier, because it's the brain-based fear that's trying to get you to back down. So taking that action and moving towards something, but it's being very clear. And you said about changing your thoughts. It actually goes higher than the thoughts. Okay. It's actually at an identity level. So it's not just changing your thoughts, because you can't outperform your identity. So if your identity feels like you are a struggling business owner, that you can't get clients, that you're always in lack and scarcity, then everything that you do and your thoughts and your behaviors and the environment that you create is going to come from that identity. So if you choose a new identity and you decide, what does an identity of a high performer look like? What are the things that I know that I need to become in order to, like, what does my business need me to become? And then you step up into that. High performers will step up to that challenge over the comfort of everything you've been doing. And then everything else will fall in line, because when you change your identity, you're changing who you are as a person. And the good thing about what we have the ability, we can change our identity. We are not born with it.
So that's pretty deep. Yes. Personal development work. It's something that definitely in the past year, I know myself, I've invested enough in coaching to buy a nice SUV. And all of my coaching.
Well worth it.
Oh, it's so worth it. I wouldn't change it at all. It's been amazing what I've learned. But what I've noticed is that all of the coaches have said exactly just that. Is like, you have to change yourself at the identity level. You have to be the person. You know, if you want to be a 6-figure entrepreneur, a 7-figure entrepreneur, whatever your goal is, you have to be that person now, even if you have $100 in the bank. You have to act how that 6-figure or 7-figure person would be acting.
Your vision.
So can you give just 1 or 2 tips for people to follow if they're looking to explore more about changing identity? What actions can they take? Are there any books or anything that they can do just to kind of grasp this concept a little bit more?
Yeah, great question. So it starts with what we do daily. So living your day with excellence is how you live your week and your month, your year, and your life with excellence. Because that's really the only thing that we have to be able to control right now. So I love this quote that says that you honor your past as your teacher, you honor your future as your inspiration, but you honor the now as your creation. So right here in the now is where we can do it. So it's living your day with excellence. So it's like, what would an excellent day look like? And asking yourself, am I living this with excellence? Only we individual, you and everybody that's listening, is going to know whether you lived an excellent day. And so it's being more conscious about that, right? So then asking yourself at the end of the day, here's an example. Let's just say that I had 5 things that that absolutely needed to get done today, no matter what. And I got 4 of them done. So I would ask myself, Mark, did you live your day with excellence? And I said, well, no, because I said that to be in self-integrity, I had 5 things I wanted to get done today, but I only got 4. Does that mean that I beat myself up, that I'm ashamed and feel guilty and all that kind of stuff? No. It just creates an awareness piece. So then I ask myself, what role or responsibility did I play in that one item not happening, which now allows me to be more mindful, more consciously look at what is that. And then now that I look at it, I go, oh, you know why I threw that on there? Because I thought that the other 4 weren't going to be enough. So I added that 5th one on there, but didn't realize that 5th thing that needed to get done had like 15 different steps to it. But see, the old me would have just thought that, man, I can't believe I didn't get it all done. But now I know the source of why I didn't get it all done, which is not looking at the problem as a symptom anymore. It's like, how am I going to solve this? Mark, you need to think about things more consciously before you put them down.
Have you ever seen the YouTube video with the Navy SEAL Admiral that talks about making your bed?
Oh, making your bed. Yes.
Yes.
That's exactly it. Make your bed every day.
That's if you start your day. That video, I've watched that YouTube video, and you guys who are listening and watching, we will link that up in the show notes. But I have watched that video probably 25 times. And it's so my husband's active duty military. And so it has even this other like deeper level for me. I'm like, this man is so amazing. And it's all as simple. Like I will wake up and I'll make my bed and I'll think about him because I'm like, I don't really want to make my bed, but I'm going to do it. And it's so true is that at the end of your day, at least you're going home to a made bed. And that just all clicked. Like that is excellence.
It is.
That's excellence.
Nailed it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So let our listeners know where they can find you, where they can follow you, how they can connect with you. And let me know if you have any last thoughts to make this episode complete for you.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'll start with the last thoughts, and then I'll share the rest. It may seem overwhelming, it may seem daunting, but it's actually not, because if you're breaking it down to what you do on a daily basis, like you just said with making the bed from that talk and that speech, it's what you do daily that makes up everything else. And so just that idea of living your life with excellence, living your day with excellence, that's where it starts. And just being conscious on a daily basis, do you feel like you've challenged yourself that day, or do you feel like you chose comfort instead? Because when you look at those two choices, it's not black and white, but the choice is crystal clear. Mm-hmm. You want the challenge, even though this is going to be way more comfortable. But you want the challenge if you want to grow your business, if you want to grow your life, if you want to grow your relationships, if you want to grow your connections, anything that has to do with that. So just doing it on a daily basis. So start there and start small. Make some micro commitments that you can do during the day, and just maybe change 2 or 3 things during the day and build that momentum up. You don't just rip the Band-Aid off and all of a sudden become a high performer.
Since we're kind of having like a quote fest here and having all these quotes in this episode, I just thought of another one by Dave Ramsey. He said, live like no one else so you can live like no one else.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's like you take action. He's like a financial advisor guy who talks about saving money and whatever, but it still rings true with everything else, with excellence, with anything, is you make the choice to live in a certain way. You make the choice to choose excellence, to choose stepping out of your comfort zone, and you will have a life like nobody else because you took those risks, because you faced your fears. And you're going to fall down sometimes. And it is going to be scary and not going to be fun. And you're going to want to just go crawl into bed and eat a bunch of ice cream. But it will certainly, your life will pay you back for that and reward you in so many ways.
I could not agree more. 100% it's worth it, because you just feel better about each day. You actually feel like there's significance to your day. You feel like there's purpose to your day, because you're actually striving, for more. And, so it actually led me to a course that I'm creating in this moment, and it's called Behaving Boldly. And so I created this Behaving Boldly because this is what I've noticed in all the high performers that I've coached in my career is, if there's one thing that will hold them back from being the best they can be, is hesitancy. And hesitancy is derived from indecision and inaction. And so looking at those are the 2 biggest areas that will increase your hesitancy, because if you're completely vacillating in decisions all the time, you end up experiencing what's called decision fatigue, where you just want to go back to the comfort because your head hurts. You're emotionally drained. You want to lay down. Like anytime I'm doing like creative work, I can't do it for very long because it's using so much emotional energy and it's taking me so far out of my comfort zone that I need to make sure that I rest, rejuvenate, take a nap, do whatever I need to do to maintain that. So Behaving Boldly is about conquering hesitancy and indecision and inaction once and for all, and I've got a whole proprietary process that goes through that. And you can find me at markbailey.com is how you can follow me and get in touch with me. But that right there, as I found, is really supporting what a high performance and your human potential is going for, because your identity is connected to your true potential. And everybody's got a potential that we're living from and living into, and it's a lot higher than most people think it is. So I say to go for it.
I love that. And, we're going to include all your links in the show notes. I love the name, by the way, Behaving Boldly. That's awesome. And I totally agree with you as far as, when I am talking with my students, I say every single one of you has something that's unique and special to offer, and find out what that is and use that as your competitive advantage. Don't compete with price. Don't compete with these other things. You compete with what special gift you have. And I think you have to do the kind of deep personal work to be able to figure that out so that you can behave boldly.
Yes. And what you said right there is if they embody more of what you just shared, then you're not being, like you're saying, you're not even in competition because you're being such service to your community and your tribe and your people and your business that you are truly being authentic. And therefore you don't even worry about what everybody else thinks because it doesn't matter.
Yep. Exactly.
In that place there, you don't drain the energy. You actually feel energized. Like you can see how pumped I am about just chatting about this. Right? So I love it, and I want to help people experience this as much as I've experienced it and even more. So yeah, I want everybody to just really just strive for that, being a high performer and really tapping into that human potential and that greatness that we all have. And you can do that through what we just shared with on this podcast today. And I just love being here, Danielle. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, this has been an amazing episode. I know that our listeners are going to get so much out of it. You guys be sure to follow Mark, check out his website. He's very modest in his high performers that he has coached. I know he's coached 7 and 8 figure business owners. So he definitely knows what he's talking about. He's been around the block as far as, working with some of the most successful people out there in business. So he knows what he's talking about. Mark, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.